Welcome to the All About You podcast. All About You is exactly what it sounds like. A podcast dedicated to the interesting, the wonderful and the eclectic world of you. I have created this podcast as a journey of discovery about people for you, the listener. Past episodes have included a hypnotist, a voice artist, a stylist and a collector of airline memorabilia, to name a few. I am your host Sheila, so let's welcome this week's guest. Today I'm very lucky to be sitting here face to face with Michele Schalin, and we are talking about mindful metamorphosis.
Yeah.
Michele, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Let's talk about what exactly is mindful metamorphosis, or MM.
Okay. So Mindful Metamorphosis is the name of my company and the name of my book that I recently published, my first book, called Mindful Metamorphosis, A Compassionate Guide to Inner Transformation. So I started this company when I was living in Spain, in Valencia, and it was actually during the lockdown that I decided to start it, because I saw so many people suffering in the same way I was, as far as struggling with anxiety and depression and processing feelings and stuff like that, and all the things that I was learning in my healing process, in my education and in my training. I knew that I could help them. And so I started the company. It wasn't a legal company here because I wasn't really allowed to work, and I wasn't making any money at it when I was here, because I was a member of Internations. It's an organization, real popular expats organization. And during the quarantine, everybody was locked down and they were all stressed out. And so all the events went online. I saw the results I was getting for all the different practices I was learning to do already kind of in my belt. I walked into that experience with, tools already that these people didn't have. Meditation and breath work and mindfulness practices and just a lot of knowledge and basic science, how it all works together, because there's decades of proof behind all this. It's not any kind of woo-woo, or anything. Yes, it's holistic and wellness, but there's all kinds of information you can get on YouTube with experts and neuroscientists and everything that explain all this. So I was very fortunate. I walked into that experience with tools in my pocket, and I was talking to different people that were hosting, events online, and I told them what I could talk about with a big variety of things. And they said, yeah, all these people definitely would like this and need this. So I started doing presentations and PowerPoints and, talks and stuff like that with people and discussions. People liked it. So more people were having me on, but I couldn't make any money through this because it was through Internations and that's not allowed. And that was fine. I just got a lot of practice, talking to people and helping people with it. I have actually, before this, I have 26 years of experience in the United States with 12-step communities. A lot of addictive kind of communities, there's all kinds. It started with Alcoholics Anonymous, but there's all kinds of different communities that I was involved with. And so I have 26 years of experience mentoring women. I just predominantly help women with trauma and addiction and healing this kind of stuff. So I had a lot of this knowledge in my background, and workaholism was my real big thing. Those communities helped me a lot. I'm not involved with them any longer for various reasons. I didn't really get very deep healing from trauma in my life. Everybody has it, until I started meditating. And that didn't come until I had a back surgery. Is that right? 2014. I realized that when I got stressed out, whether I was upset about something or I was just anxious about something, the chemicals that you naturally produce in your body, cortisol and adrenaline, happens where you normally get like a little uncomfortableness in your neck or your stomach or something like that. Now, after my surgery, it was actually painful. And I thought to myself, oh, geez, I got to learn how to manage this better. And that's what led me into meditation. I was such a workaholic before that for all my life. Even as a child, I became that way because of my, the culture I lived in encourages it. I got attention from my parents when I was productive. Otherwise, they were just kind of off in their own world, busy, and so that kind of gave me this message, this unsaid message that, okay, you're more lovable and worthwhile if you're productive. So that really fueled that behavior of workaholism as an adult. And so that caused a lot of stress for me. I was always in a heightened state of flight or fight without knowing it. I used exercise a lot to alleviate anxiety, but I didn't know what I was doing because nobody talked about exercise. Nobody talked about anxiety then. Now it's a daily conversation, but back then nobody did. It wasn't until maybe 12 years ago that I heard people talking about anxiety attacks and describing them that I realized that that's what was happening to me. And I used to joke that I would tell people, well, I just need to kind of run around like a toddler for a while before I can relax. But I had no idea that that was anxiety, And so I have a lot of experience in helping people before this. Actually, I had this situation where I was in Spain and during this lockdown and everything. So I decided to use this time to put myself in a bubble and micromanage everything, all the input, like really micromanage everything I was listening to, watching and everything. Apart from the crazy news and the politics that were happening in my country, and I limited that severely, I just kind of peaked at that. Apart from that, everything else was positive. I was able to still work because I was teaching English and Skype and, Zoom. I micromanaged everything as far as I didn't watch anything disturbing or violent. I didn't watch any movies and series like everybody was. I was only listening to documentaries once in a while and videos and reading books and stuff like that. That was just either meditation, inspiration, spiritual, or scientific and neuroscience and all the things I was learning about your thought process and how it affects your health and everything. Just was absorbing all that. And I did a lot of meditation throughout this time. And I just went inward a lot for the most in my life. I was already, like I said, I already had this practice of meditation, but now it was just like this boom, this bubble. I talk about it in my book, in my story. It's easy to talk about it now and people are receptive. But in 2018, when I first started talking about it, people got a little nervous. Plant medicine experience, psychedelics done in a very, controlled and safe manner can be very helpful for people's healing, okay? Not everybody, but it can help a lot of people. And there's a lot of science around this, and that's going to continue to evolve all over the world. I had an experience in 2018, and I started investigating this. And I just happened to have... that I don't believe in coincidences. I had these chocolates that had psilocybin mushrooms in them. I had bought them from a man in the Netherlands. I had a friend that told me about these where you just, transfer money to him and he sends it to the mail. And so I did. And I already had tried some of them and I thought they were very good. So I had these and and then I got locked down. And I was like, oh, I got these chocolate bars. And in my healing experience is as I work on specific things, when I go inward and I'm working on cultivating self-love or forgiveness or acceptance or whatever I'm working on, and I have that kind of experience, it just magnifies, it amplifies the growth. It just goes kind of a fast forward, you know what I mean? And I'm able to see, I go inward and without my ego blocking it, you're able to go see, really get to the root of deep things in your subconscious with that experience. So I did this, every week, every Saturday for 5 weeks. And one of these experiences, I share it in my book, it's a very, very powerful experience. So my mother died at this time, it was 29 years she had been dead. And I love my mother very much, but we had a very volatile relationship. And there was a lot of unsaid stuff. She died from a brain tumor when she was 40. She was diagnosed at 48, she died at 56. And I was only 19 when she was diagnosed and 27 when she died. And there was a lot of unsaid stuff. I mean, that was just the nature of my family, okay? And so I had a lot of sadness and anger still and all that kind of stuff. But I believe I was blocked from any kind of, connection with her. I believed in spirits contacting people and that, in their dreams and, like little signs and stuff. I know that people around me had it. My family, had those experiences. So I was open to it, but I just never had it. This kind of thing happens to people when they have these kind of experiences, okay, sometimes. And so I just I was reading this book, How to Change Your Mind, by a man named Michael Pollan. And you can find the same really good book. And this was a man that just writes about, he's an author, he writes about different things, and he decided he'd started hearing all this information about these, substances and experiences people were having. So he's real interested in trying it. And at 65 was his first time. And so he has a series on Netflix, the same name, How to Change Your Mind, really fascinating. And in his book, he suggested maybe, that he used music. Most people use music in this kind of experience if they're not out in nature, if they're inside. And he used classical music one time, and he suggested that. I never listened to classical music like that, and I was like, okay, no, I'll try it out. Everything in around you influences the experience, whether it be the music, whether it be the atmosphere, the person, whatever. Okay, so I'm listening to classical music, and all of a sudden, the Tchaikovsky from the Nutcracker comes on, and immediately my brain lit up Mom, because this was a bond with us. Okay, she loved the Nutcracker. She took me to the ballet sometimes, and every season, every Christmas, we listened into music, and I did the same thing with my kids. So this was. I'll never forget it. It was an incredible experience where all of a sudden I felt her presence. I didn't see anything, I didn't hear anything, but her presence was absolutely undeniable. And I was like, and then it was just this love fest, basically. I was crying, I love you, forgive me, I forgive you. I remember it was like this vision of hugging her and hugging her inner child, and oh my God, it was like incredible. I just get lit up every time I even think about it, And it was during this time that I believe she gave me the message that you need to write a book and tell people what's going on with you. And so that was what made me, want to do it so badly. And so, yeah. And ever since that experience, I had this connection with her. It's not constant, but when I'm present, it's because of me. When I'm present and centered, I can connect with her. And so that's really, really beautiful gift that I got out of it. I mean, I got a lot of really wonderful gifts out of that experience. It was a very challenging experience, but like I said, I was really lucky to have the tools I had. So yeah, and so when I decided to write the book, at first the title of the book was going to be, my first idea was Suffer Better, Suffer Less. That was my original title. I thought it was very catchy and it was great. It came actually from an idea from a quote from a Vietnamese monk called Thich Nhat Hanh, pretty famous. And he said, when you learn to suffer better, you'll suffer much less. And he also has a book called No Mud, No Lotus. So basically, any uncomfortable feeling is the suffering, right? Whether it be fear, we call them bad feelings, but they're just feelings. And whether they're fear, anger, grief, whatever you're suffering from. When you learn to process those feelings, because we're not taught how to do that, usually we're taught to suppress them. When you learn to process them, they're just energy. And they move through your body, and they leave your body, and then you suffer less as far as having anxiety and sleep problems or all kinds of physical ailments that people have, because that stagnant energy that we push down into our system gets expressed in all these different ways that people have. My mother was, a tumor. I had back surgery. You know what I mean? But that title didn't resonate with a lot of people because they didn't understand it. They just heard the word suffer, and they were like, they had this face like, oh, no, that's uncomfortable. And I had the first editor I talked to said, we might want to change that title. And I was like, but it's so great. But nobody else got it. And the people that didn't do any work on themselves, like people that have gone inward and actually have worked on this, they understood it. But that was the minimal people. And that, it frankly wasn't my demographic as much. You know what I mean? I needed to reach the people that didn't understand. And so after a little time of not really knowing what my title was going to be, when I have those kind of indecisive moments or something like that, I don't get all wound up in trying to figure it out. I go, okay, I put it out to the universe, the answer will come. And then it came to me just walking down the street. I'm like, Michele, just call it the name of your company name, Mindful Metamorphosis. And the subtitle, Compassionate Guide to Inner Transformation, my story is just at the very beginning. It's a very short Reader's Digest version. And then I wanted to share, different subject matter in the different chapters to help educate people and my passion is help people develop a mental health fitness belief system, just like physical fitness, that when you learn to do these different practices, and they're simple, it's just challenging to get them into your daily life. And that's why it's helpful if you have a community or a coach to help you. Just like if you were working out for the first time, you got a trainer, right? And so once you have these practices in your lifestyle, that you'll be able to just manage the crazy environment that a lot of us are living in the modern world now, right? With technology and all this messaging and everything. Yeah, so I was really passionate about sharing that with people because Obviously, we know we don't have a mental fitness belief system, because if we did, everybody would be doing this, but we're conditioned with immediate gratification, of course, and technology has just made that amplified more. A lot of people, because of their cultural conditioning and family, maybe, have this judging, critical way of looking at themselves, right? We have these, I'm your own best critic, or I'm your worst enemy. And we just talk about these, we just like, yeah, that's just the way it is. It doesn't have to be that way. And that is really detrimental to your mental and physical health, being that way. But it's just so accepted that that's just the way we are, kind of thing. But you can learn to change that.
I mean, there's so much to unpick from that.
Sorry.
No, absolutely fine. There's so much. I think one of the good things coming out of the pandemic, and I know we're still talking about the pandemic, on a negative side, there seems to be a lot more people with sleep issues, a lot more people with anxiety. But on a positive note, we are talking about anxiety, we are talking about sleep issues, we are talking about medication, meditation, breath work, exercise, all the rest of it. So in a good way, it's more out there, and nobody looks at you as if you're completely bonkers. If you are talking about you have a daily meditation practice, or you like to go and put your arms around a tree, everybody's like, yeah, okay. It's not maybe my thing, but if it works for you, you go ahead and do it.
Exactly.
We are far more accepting of these type of practices than I think mainstream society was prior to the pandemic.
Absolutely. And the anxiety and the sleep problems and ADHD and all these different symptoms that people are having, they're not the problems, they're the symptoms, okay? And the traditional medicine is all too in the managing the problem, and just like medicating or managing that problem instead of going, what's the root of this? Why is this happening? Okay, there's a reason. It's not just individual, it's cultural. And all of that stuff was escalating every year. Every year all over the world, especially the Western modern world, with more technology and overstimulation from the constant information. It's just totally an unnatural way for your brain and your body to function, And so our bodies and our brains have been screaming at us for a while, and we're just pushing it down and ignoring them and trying to just get the immediate, relief, which it may give you immediate relief, but a lot of times those things don't even work for people, right? And they're jumping from one thing to another as far as distractions or addictions, because they're too afraid to look inward, because they've never been taught to process their feelings. These problems have been escalating before COVID. COVID was just that experience around the world was such an intense experience for everybody, that it just magnified everything so much. And it, caused even more. Of course, it heightened it even more, because people didn't know how to handle their life like that. They were away from people. We're community animals. We want to be with people and touch and all that. And so that was all removed. And people were on technology a lot more, even more so. And then then they couldn't get out to nature. Okay, that's another thing. Because grounding is a very specific science, earthing and grounding, where you put your feet on the ground without shoes, is immensely healing. It's all science, it's all behind it now. You get, negatively charged electrodes into your body, helps with inflammation, helps with anxiety, helps with sleep, everything. And all that was taken away from people, so it just magnified it. And I couldn't agree more with you. It's wonderful. A lot more people are talking and open about this. There's more and more experts online you can easily access. And in my book, I refer to all kinds of books and TED Talks and videos of all kinds of experts I've studied under. It's all out there, people. You can check it out yourself. And yeah, people are talking about it. And I absolutely believe that my passion to help people develop mental health fitness is going to excel dramatically in the next 5 to 10 years. And people will have meditation coaches and mental fitness coaches, just like they have regular physical fitness, and they'll know that this is a part of a healthy style in their life to take care of their brain. And if they don't do it, they'll feel a little guilty about it, like if they don't exercise. You know what I mean? That's what's going to happen. The education just has to get out to more and more people. And when I would talk about this before, and I did talk about some of this before, actually, when I was living here. It was pre and post, actually. It was pre-COVID. When I was living here, I started these conversation groups for Spanish people and other people that wanted to practice English. And I would bring up some of this stuff because I was already studying it, and I was already had it in my life. And it was really interesting. The younger women in their 20s and 30s mostly, a lot of them knew, or maybe they already were doing it a little bit of themselves. Older women and the men were, especially the men, were very, skeptical, and they had this face on them, But they listened, and they were really open to what I was talking about, because I would come to the group each week with a topic, all right? And I would send them a video sometimes. Hey, check it out, and then we can talk about it, And there was this one man, we've continued to be friends. His name is Lorenzo. He used to come regularly. And he was one of those, he'd look at me like, I don't know about this, talking about mindful and meditation and how it helped. And then in 2019, the Newsweek magazine had a whole spread, like a 6-page spread. This is pre-COVID, right? About just the pandemic of mental illness growing up and everyone having problems, and how these holistic practices will, not may, can, will help you if you do them. And he bought that at the newsstand. He saw it at the newsstand here in Valencia. And he brought it to me. He's like, look at Michele, everything that you're saying. Yes, it's all science. And then he was more convinced.
Exactly. There's one thing I wanted to sort of get your opinion on. I think a lot of people are afraid of sitting with their emotions. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, and I've done this myself, you come home from work, you take your coat off, and you might switch on the TV, you might switch on the radio. That was back in the day. Now you walk through the door, you're on TikTok, you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook. We have got 24/7 from anywhere in the world, any language. It's free, it's there if you want it. I just think a lot of people are frightened to sit. And one example is I travel a lot on public transport. And I am making a real effort now. Once I'm on the bus, the phone stays in the bag, and I'm looking out the window. Oh, new restaurant, new shop. Oh my God, look at the leaves on the trees. The colours are starting. Oh, that building's having.
What you used to do all the time.
Well,
right, before phones.
and then sort of when I've sort of taken it, I thought, all right, let's see who's on the bus today, sort of thing. And you can count. There's 8 seats. And 8 people are on their phones.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's assume they're not all scrolling Facebook and Instagram. Somebody could be sending an email, a work email. Somebody's catching up on a TED Talk. We cannot look at it and say, okay, it's all rubbish, it's all social, whatever. A lot of people are running businesses from their phones, which is great. But what do you think about people being afraid of just, if we had 100 people and said, okay, we just want you to sit in a chair for half an hour, no phone, no nothing, just sit with your hands in your lap. Probably a third of them would doze off. Uh-huh. How do you think people would react just to that short experiment?
They would. Most people would have a real hard time with it. They would be very uncomfortable. And it would be hard, and a lot of them would probably quit. They wouldn't want to do it.
Okay, now let's pick that apart. Is that because they would be having anxiety because they haven't got their phones?
That's some of them, yeah.
Or is it what I always call it, the voices in your head?
Yeah, it's a variety of all of it. Before all this came out, before phones were even invented, okay, we know what it was like. People were still, conditioned to suppress their emotions and not show their emotions and that kind of thing. Most people would, when they came home, they'd turn the TV on right away. Just being silent was uncomfortable for a lot of people, right? I always hear people, and I did it too. I would hear people all the time, oh yeah, I just like to have something in the background so it makes me feel better.
Exactly.
People used to say this all the time, right? So it's been a part of our lives, all my life, because I was born with television, so I don't know. And so that's been there all along, right? And now we just have more and more ability to distract ourselves, okay, with all this other technology, right? Apart from that, the effect that technology, our use around technology, in my book I have a chapter called Our Relationship with Technology. I have a love-hate relationship with technology from the very get-go. I have a website services company that's over 20 years old. So I've been making money using technology for many years. But I also can look at the very big vision of things and look at the big picture and see when things start to happen and things that are invented and stuff like that about, wow, that's really cool, but that's not going to be so good for communication. I thought that when email came out, okay, not let alone what's happening with text now. And you can see the habit of texting a lot is changing the way people communicate, and not in a good way. And then the younger generation that's grown up and born with this is almost like a lot of them is like they don't know how to communicate really well. They don't know how to handle conflict with with that kind of stuff. They're just used to ghosting, and walking away from something if they don't like it. And I've met young adults that grow up with this, not all of them, but there's a percentage where it reminds me of when I met children years ago that were homeschooled but not socialized. Now, homeschool can be really great if it's done right, but you have to socialize the kid too. You can't just only have them at home with you, right? And I would meet some of these kids and they just had a hard time looking at me in the eye and real uncomfortable with themselves. And this is what's happening to a whole generation. So that's like a whole nother thing culturally. Yes, most people are really uncomfortable sitting by themselves and being quiet with themselves because it's just so unnatural. They don't ever do it, right? They don't have it in their practice. I would love that, to sit down and just do a little meditation. I would do it no problem, but most people would definitely be challenged with it. When I talk about meditation or even, going like in a deeper kind of a state where breath work, where you go very deep in a state when you do certain sessions or other experiences, people will say a lot of times, they will say, oh, that's kind of scary. Like they'll say, any kind of inward action, that's kind of scary. Because they know that there's suppressed emotions, there's unhealed trauma that they've not healed from, that there's there, and they're afraid to feel it because we treat our feelings like monsters under the bed. You know what I mean? Like it's going to hurt us. And I say to people, okay, feeling the emotion, I understand. And I ask them, I pretend like I don't know what they mean. And I go, what do you mean? Why do you think that's scary? Well, I'm sure I have things. Yeah, but, and I talk to them about it. I say, your emotions really they're just energy. That's what it is. Everything's energy. And so emotions are energy. And so if you're afraid of that, you're basically afraid of energy. You're afraid of memories, or you're afraid of your imagination, something in the future, right? That's all it is. And when you learn to, accept it instead of resisting it, the resisting is where you get more the mental and physical pain and emotional pain. I shouldn't say mental, but emotional and physical pain. That's where you get the pain, when you're resisting what's trying to come up and out, okay? Because our body's like a river. It flows, okay? And when you suppress your emotions, it's like putting stagnant energy. It's like putting logs in the river, and all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, I'm not flowing so good. And then you're going to have symptoms of that. And everybody's symptoms are different, right? So people are afraid to go inward because they're afraid of feeling stuff that they've pushed down. And they know that on a subconscious level. And when you really act like you don't know what they're talking about, it'll come out, they'll say it. And then that's what I say. I said, it's just energy. And when I feel that way, and I have to remind myself too, because, even though I'm not like immune to these, to these symptoms and experiences. I live in this crazy kind of environment too. And even with the knowledge that I have and all the practice that I have, if I feel myself sometimes starting to resist a feeling that's uncomfortable, or what we call bad feelings, okay? I don't even say that, just uncomfortable feeling. Or if I'm feeling a sense of anxiety, sometimes my body will immediately try to resist it. I could feel the tension in my body. And I have to remind myself, it's okay, Michele. It's just energy. There's nothing to be afraid of. You're safe. Because when you start that thinking, your body thinks it's unsafe. And that's when it produces all this cortisol and adrenaline. It thinks you need to escape or fight, and you're in this heightened state of stress. And when you think like this all the time, you're in this heightened state of stress all the time. Nothing is made to withstand that kind of stress for this years. And that's why when cortisol comes into your body on a regular basis, you're suppressing your immune system. So a lot of people are walking around with chronically suppressed immune systems. That's what happened to me, and that's what happened to my breakdown in my body finally. I'll tell people this, it's just energy. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be afraid of it. Really, you don't have to be. If you had a child that came up to you, someone that your little child that you adored, and they came up to you and they told you how scared they were, or nervous or something like that, you would treat them with love, right? You would try to comfort them and treat them with love. And you wouldn't say, hey, I don't want to hear it, get your act together, I mean, maybe some people do that, but most people know. When you learn to do that with yourself and you treat yourself with that kind of love and compassion, it takes time because so many people have the inner critic. They don't think they're good enough. I mean, most people have this really deep down feeling of this, you know? It's intentionally put into our brains many years ago to make us feel not good enough, less than, so we will buy things and make people rich, okay? This is going on for many, many years. And now it's gotten more and more sophisticated when they know more about the brain and how it works and all the technology and everything. It's very, very sophisticated now. And you can see how it's changing people's behavior. So that's why I say in my subtitle, a compassionate guide to inner transformation. When people try to go inward with meditation for the first time, most of the time their approach is not the best way for success. So they enter it and the goal is, I'm going to quiet my mind. I want to quiet this voice in my mind. Absolutely impossible.
Well, I can say good luck with that.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely impossible. That's the roommate that never stops talking.
Absolutely.
Okay. So it is impossible. And if you think that that's the goal, then you will not achieve it and you will be frustrated and you will quit very quickly. And then you'll have this judging, critical, oh, I can't do this is not for me, blah, 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 blah. And then people make all kinds of excuses like, I don't have time to meditate. Yes, you do. It's like brushing your teeth. It's more people will do this when years from now. It will be just a part of your life. So basically, I tell people, the approach the goal should not be that. The goal, if you want to have success, is to focus. And when your mind wanders, not if, you refocus. Mind wanders, refocus. Mind wanders, refocus. That's the goal, okay? If you were listening to a podcast and you spaced out, and then you go, oh, wait, what were they saying again? You wouldn't get angry at yourself and quit listening to the podcast, right? No. You would go, wait, what were they saying again? And you'll tune in again, right? I always suggest to people, most people will do better, beginners, when they listen to guided meditation, because it gives you prompts to focus on instead of just your breath, okay? So there's just thousands and thousands of kinds of these kind of meditations, very healing meditations with different apps that people use. My favorite is Insight Timer. So the goal is to focus, wander, refocus, wander. Don't take it so serious, okay? People are like, oh, they get all, stressed out about it. Don't take it so serious. Just practice doing that and try it, 2, 3, 5 minutes a day. Just consistency is the most important thing. And you enter, the approach is always with love and compassion, love and compassion. And when you see yourself being judging and critical to yourself, don't get judging about that. You know what I mean? Just apologize, like, oh, I'm doing it again. No, you just observation. And what I do is I apologize to myself. I'm sorry, sweetie. I don't mean to treat you that way. And I talk to myself like that in a very loving, compassion way. And then if you approach it like that, with love and compassion, understand that this is training. It's just training like anything else. You're not going to sit down and do this perfectly. That's a totally unrealistic expectation. And the fact that you think you're going to shut down your mind and stop the chatter is also unrealistic, okay? Now, when you get better at it, you will see the result of that, absolutely. And you'll see a lot more results and you'll want to do it more. You'll look forward to it. Once you get that in your daily routine, just a little bit a day. It doesn't take long, And then so then people get less fearful because when they start to see the results, and then when they start to they learn to begin to stop resisting the uncomfortable the feelings. It's very short-term uncomfort for really great, long-lasting benefits. That's what I tell people. It's just for a short time. It's just like working out. You want to go for a run, and maybe that's uncomfortable for you, but you stick with it because you know the results you're going to get. It's the same thing. And that's why I talk about the mental fitness belief system. It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. And once people understand that and they start practicing to do it, they will be more comfortable. But that would be a very good exercise to watch, because you say a half an hour, you try doing that 5 minutes for most people. 5 minutes with nothing but just sitting there, it's hard for a lot of people.
I think one of the things is, the body is incredibly good at repairing itself. Mm-hmm. However, we tend to override that process. For example, if someone's got a cold, I will say it's 3 days, a beginning, middle and an end. Lay on the sofa, watch trash telly, drink loads of fluid,
Yep.
Eat whatever you want, and just Give your body the rest while all those little men are working away
Yep.
repairing. Please don't try and soldier on, pop in the pills, infecting everybody else, and your recovery takes longer. So that's my theory.
It's absolutely true.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And then I think with meditation, absolutely. You talk about meditation. I haven't got half an hour every day to sit there and I say, no, neither have I. And I think the perception is they see some yogi somewhere cross-legged off on another journey, and no, I've got, a husband, children, work, I've got all these commitments. As you say, just sit, even keep your eyes open. Don't expect I'm going to sit down there cross-legged 30 minutes and I'm going to be enlightened. No. And I've heard it being called training the puppy, which I think is great. Mm-hmm. In other words, every time that mind wanders, just gently bring it. Okay, I acknowledge I was making a supermarket list in my brain. Okay, I accept. Just bring it back to the breath. Oh, now I'm thinking about I need to add something to that supermarket list. That's going to go on. Mm-hmm. And I think just starting, can you just sit in a chair for 2 minutes and just focus on your breath? And it's very, very true what you say. We cannot think of anything. I mean, people say, I need to empty my mind. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
I need something to focus on. Great, just focus on your breath. Don't even try and do anything with it. Just sort of see how it feels. Where do you feel that breath? Do you feel it, in your throat, your neck, your chest? Where is it? And just focusing on that breath is the simplest way to start. And I agree 100% with guided meditations. It's where I started. And I do an evening meditation. And I was talking to somebody the other day and they said, I'm having problems sleeping. I have got a track for it. It's fantastic. How long is it? Do you know, I really don't know because I've never heard the end. And I had to look at it and it's like 18 minutes something. And I've never got to the end. I sort of wake up, I've got the earbuds in and it's like, finish. Mm-hmm. I've never heard the end. I think that's the greatest thing ever. Yep. But I think meditation is so beneficial, but I think oh my God, I've got to sit cross-legged and I've got to empty my mind and I've got to, am I doing it right? That's the big one. Am I doing it right? Who cares?
Right. As long as you get that. I love when you talk about training the pup because I actually talk about this a lot. I said, when your mind wanders, you just treat it like a little toddler or a dog that you're taking for a walk. And you just go, okay, no. They get distracted and they see something. No, we're coming over here. Just come on over here. And that's the example I get. Just very gentle, like, no, come on back here. Like that.
What I do, I sort of pin the supermarket list on a cloud and then
there you go. Yeah, whatever works.
And then I'm trying to, and then the next one I'll be, I've got to buy something. Okay, I'm going to pin that on the cloud and that can follow the supermarket. I'm a very visual person. So to me, pinning that thought to a cloud and just
letting it flow.
That's fine.
That's perfect.
Fine. That's that's just,
it's like whatever works for you.
Whatever works for you. That is the thing, Michelle.
Whatever works for you. And
there is no
make
right,
it customized.
There is
that's
no
right.
wrong.
And the other thing is two things I want to say is, it's funny because we have a lot of people have this little vision of what it is, but in reality, famous sports, athletes, military. I mean, a lot of people, high successful CEOs, have been using form of meditation and mindfulness exercises for many years for their success. Okay, this has been going on for a long time, and now more and more that's coming out. The other thing is a meditative state. The common denominator for there's lots of different types of meditation, okay? Lots of different practices. The common denominator for a meditative state is you're focusing on. You're really intently focusing on something. So, a good starting point if someone has a hard time sitting still, and for me, that was a hard time because I came from decades of intense workaholism, just go, and not just work, just busy constantly. Because I was uncomfortable with sitting still because I had all these suppressed emotions that I was just, I was too afraid to look at. But I consciously didn't know that. When you start doing this, you start to you train yourself basically, your brain, and as the practice with meditation. And then what happens is you start having more control over your thoughts. Whereas before you were total slave to them, all right? And there's different types of meditative state. Even just moving meditation, for me, what helped me a lot was yoga, okay? And that started bringing me inward for the first time. Any kind of creativity, artwork, any kind of writing, any kind of, painting, anything like that, music, that's a type of meditative state. Sports can be a type of meditative state. One time I had a student tell me that, and he said he loved doing sports when he was younger because he could disconnect. And he was talking about the voices, the chatter would go away because he was intently focusing on something else. In actuality, he wasn't disconnecting, he was connecting. That's what made him feel so good. He was connecting inwardly. And that's why you see people get so into it's you're connecting inwardly. So this flavor doesn't work for you, just sitting and listening to your breath, fine. Just find something else that you can eat, maybe out in nature. And you can just really connect with your eyes open and look at things in that way. You know what I mean? All of those things are a meditative state. And as you practice it, you change your brain. You change your brain where you have more control. I mean, I had an experience one time with the Rolling Stones concert a couple of years ago. It was perfect. I have a YouTube channel where I share a lot of little tips and stuff like this. And it was such a great example of what was happening to me with my training with meditation and mindfulness that I shared it. And my friend brought me to the Rolling Stones concert. It was the first concert they'd had since COVID. It was the first experience like that I had in like over 8 to 10 years or something. And after all the isolation I had, I was fine when I got there. And we sat in our seats and everything. And then we got up and they started playing, music. And then all of a sudden I got this real intense, overwhelming feeling. I started freaking out. And my brain immediately was like, oh my God, this energy is super intense. Like, I don't know if I can handle this for the next 2 hours. And I feel like going home right now. Those were the thoughts that came into my mind. Now, those thoughts are just crazy thoughts in my mind. They're not like something that's coming from my chest. You learn to discern the difference between something that's feeling a heaviness in my chest is an emotion that needs to be expressed, okay? That was not that. That was crazy thoughts that I could turn around, okay? So when I talk about this, I like to talk about that difference because never do I ever want to think people, this positive toxicity where you're just, I got to think positive all the time. Well, if it's in your brain and you got crazy thought, okay, you can turn that around. But if it's here in your chest and you feel a sensation there, that needs to come out. That can cause a lot of anxiety and all kinds of problems when you're suppressing that. So in this case, it was just in my mind. And what happens, if you don't catch, they say 17, 20 seconds, I'm not sure where they come up with it, but very quickly, if you don't catch that and turn it around, what will happen is your subconscious will attach a story onto it, and then the emotions kick in. And now it's harder to climb out of that rabbit hole, okay? But if you catch it quick, you can keep that from happening. And I knew that from my practice and my training. And I was like, oh, no. This is not going to happen. And I immediately started telling myself, you're safe, Michele. Because when I was doing that, my body's going to go, oh, I'm not safe, And then I'm like, you're safe, sweetheart, it's okay. This is wonderful. This is beautiful. This is iconic. You'll never see this band again. Look at how beautiful this experience is. Look at these people the first time and after all we've been through together now. And I'm moving my body to get the energy out. I'm breathing really deep as I'm talking to myself doing this. My friend next to me has no idea what's going on with me. He thinks I'm having a good time, And I'm like, for about less than 2 minutes, I did this. And immediately it left me. The rest of the night was absolutely great. It was no struggle. I had a wonderful time. The old me would have been struggling all night. I would have been going to the restroom and going into the stall and breathing or whatever, you know what I mean? And going out again and struggling all night. But this new me, with all my training and everything, I had that much control over my brain and I could take it, boom, right away. And I was like, as soon as it happened, I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. I didn't think to do a video about it right away, but I just knew. I knew intuitively, immediately that it was because of all the training I was doing. I never had that kind of control before. And so that's what I know how to do now. And I love to show people how to do it because it's an amazing tool. It's a superpower. Meditation is a superpower. It changes every aspect of your life, everything. It helps you learn to control your thoughts, your words, to take a breath, not react right away and respond in a more mindfulness. We talk about having a mindfulness practice. That gets better when you do meditation and they work in tangent.
I mean, it basically is a very useful tool in your toolbox.
Absolutely.
Because every day we're going to get things that don't go right, situations, and instead of letting those situations spiral, and if they do, that could manifest as problems in the body and illness, etc.
Guaranteed.
We can sort of say, okay, what can I do? Because if we get a stressful situation, the first thing that generally happens, our breathing just goes crazy. And then the blood pressure goes up and the heart rate, and we start feeling anxious. If we have got something very, very simple, okay, this situation, first thing, get
breathe.
Control of the breath.
That's right.
Yeah.
First thing when people, if you start to stress, and you're feeling that, the first thing, you may not know, you just feel it in your body. Sometimes you don't, it doesn't register yet with your mind. You just feel the tension in your body immediately, right? If you ever have kind of feeling tension like that, the first thing I ask myself is, okay, what are you thinking right now? Because sometimes like it happens so quickly in the mind, you're just feeling it in the body first, you know what I'm saying? And we need to listen to our body more. Our body is always 100% right talking to us. The mind, that's another thing. We tend to listen to that, and a lot of times that's wrong. So it's like the fake news in the mind, right? So I go, what are you thinking about right now? And then breathe. How are you breathing? Because guaranteed, if you're stressed, your breathing is shallow. And that is a very physiological fact. When you deep breathe, you immediately keep yourself, you switch, it's like a light switch. When you're stressed and your body's feeling, you're going into the flight or fight, and you're going to start shooting cortisol and stress hormones into your body, all right? As soon as you breathe really deep and tell yourself, I'm stressed, what am I thinking about right now? And then you immediately flick the switch, and it puts your body into the parasympathetic system, which is the rest and restore. And if you just say, I'm just not going to think about that, it's kind of like the puppy again, all right? No, give yourself a different focus, all right? So like, for example, ruminating was a real problem, a real thing I used to do all my life. And then I get all caught up in the story and relive the whole thing again and stress my body out about what happened, in the past. And so you can't control the thoughts that come into your brain, but you can learn to control what you do with them, right? And with the practice of forgiveness, which is a whole other really important aspect of healing, and the training from meditation, when those thoughts come into your brain, you will eventually be able to go, nope, we're not going to go there. And immediately I turn myself to something else. I don't just say, I'm not going to think about that, because that's like, don't think about the elephant in the water and everyone's going to think about it, right? So say, I'm not going to think about that. I'm thinking about this instead. And so the things I immediately turn my attention to is something I'm grateful for, or what's my intention right now. And different things work different for people. Sometimes if I do the intention, maybe it's not working. I'm like, okay, what am I grateful for right now? Because those two things bring you in the present. When you're ruminating, you're in the past. Or when you're, anxious about the future, you're in the future. And anxiety is misunderstood by a lot of people. It is not only caused by an uncertain feeling or afraid of the future. There's a lot of things that can cause anxiety. And I have a whole book about it. Anxiety is like our best friend. It's the internal alarm to try and tell us, hey, something's wrong. But we're so uncomfortable with the feeling, we're constantly resisting it and trying to mask it. We just have to say, what's going on? What could possibly have caused this? Too much screen time, too much technology, not enough nature, thinking too fast, moving too fast. These are things that I do, sometimes that will start to cause a feeling of anxiety. And suppressing feelings, all these things. And I used to think that the only the cause for anxiety was the fear of thinking about the future, something that you're uncertain about. And that's what people talk about a lot. But no, I learned through my own healing experience that, wow, no, I can feel this feeling in a lot of ways. And so one of the things I tell people when they talk about having challenge with anxiety is to write a list of things down. What causes you to have anxiety? Let's figure out that list. And then look at, okay, why? Why is that? Where did that come from? And what can I do about it? Can I eliminate that? Whether it be an experience, person, place, or thing. If I can, great. Let's try to eliminate that. If I can't, how do I plan for it? How do I prepare for that? How do I prepare my mind to handle that when I'm in it? What's the action in the process that I'm going to have while I'm in it? And how do I recover from it after I get out? Okay? And when you learn to have that practice with the different people or experiences that you can't eliminate, or maybe you don't want to eliminate, okay, then you have a plan of action and you feel more supported and you feel more prepared, and that will help you with that challenge.
I think the thing is, we spend a lot of time in our minds ruminating about the past. He said, she said, I wish I had said, I wish they had X, Y, Z, which we clearly can do nothing about. We worry about the future, a lot of things that we cannot control, may or may not happen, and there's not generally a lot we can do about it at that point. So we're left with the present, thinking, okay, I don't have time to meditate, I'm doing this, and this, okay, I've got to go and prepare dinner. Okay, so while I'm peeling the potatoes and the carrots, let's actually look at the shape of this potato.
There you go.
Let's have a look at am I going to cut a piece off and I'm going to eat that and then really enjoy it while I'm cutting up? That's a
and it's meditative.
And you're preparing.
It's creative.
Dinner. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
You know, we haven't got to sit down cross-legged and for
That's
an
right.
hour and a half.
No, just simple stuff like that actually prepares you to be able to go into a deeper meditation maybe in the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But getting the habit of doing that is really important. The other thing that causes a lot of stress and anxiety for people, and they don't realize, I discussed that a little bit, is their use of technology, but their input. Input determines your output, just physically and mentally. It's the same thing. People we talk a lot about not, staying away from negative input, right? But not many people talk about intentionally listening to good input, right? Just don't do it. A lot of people don't talk about it. They don't do it. And that's the big experience I got when I was in that, isolation, and I've continued it, every day of my life now. I always listen to at least 10 minutes of some kind of good input every day. And normally I do it more than that. I do it several times a day, all right? While you're cooking, while you're on the bus, and while you're walking, while you're driving. You can do it all different ways. And there's all kinds of different types of good input. There's positive podcasts like this one. There's talks on YouTube of all kinds of famous people. Short talks, long talks, doesn't even matter. Even if it's a long talk, you listen to it for 10 minutes, and when you go back to that video, YouTube knows where you left off. You know what I mean? Really, I do that kind of stuff all the time, and you just get your favorite messengers. You know what I mean? That you really like. They remind you, even when you know that you should be doing this. I shouldn't say should. Even when you know this will be helpful for your health and do this, you forget because it's real easy to get caught up with all this distraction around us. So just having that gentle reminder in the same video or something. I've been listening to this one book. It's a narration with Wayne Dyer, who's super famous. He's awesome, one of my favorites. And he's got this great book that he narrates on YouTube. It's like an hour and a half long, and I just listen to it every once in a while. Great. It just talks about change. One chapter is about, meditation. He's got a lot of good books and great books. And this is like the 10 secrets to a peaceful life. Okay? Really great. And it's just listening, or Eckhart Tolle, there's a lot of people that I listen to and I mix it up. I'm going to listen to so-and-so right now. And I'll do it sometimes when I'm doing yoga or just when I'm making dinner or whatever, just whenever I'm in the mood. But I have a conscious intention every day to at least listen 10 minutes or something like that. If you start that off in the morning like that and you end it at night, oh my God, you will see a big difference. People, the input that people put in right away when their mindset when they, in the morning, to give yourself time to prepare your mind for what you're going to encounter in this world right now. Because it's like Brene Brown talks about armoring up. It's super important, and it will definitely dictate what your day is going to be like. And then at night, what are you listening to? What are you watching right before you go to bed? I was talking to a client the other day, and she's like, well, I'm doing real good. I don't listen to the news at night. I don't listen to social and this and that. She goes, but I fall asleep listening to crime shows. I said, well, that needs to change. Okay, that is going into your brain. You're putting disturbing content into your brain right before you go to sleep. And as Wayne Dyer would say, now you're going to marinate in that. And then you don't connect the dots, but that will cause anxiety and sleep problems for you. And you don't connect the dots at what you were listening to.
I mean, one thing that's come across my radar, which makes total sense now, back in the day, we would all have an old-fashioned alarm clock. Now we all use a mobile phone, which is fine for the alarm. So we switch the alarm off, and then we look at, okay, what's going on in the news, what's going on
it's
on
horrible.
Instagram. We haven't even got out of bed.
It's horrible.
And all of a sudden,
And
we
you're like,
are feeding.
It's like you're plugging into the Matrix immediately.
Exactly.
That's exactly it. It's exactly it.
And this article was saying the best thing you can do is to go and buy an old-fashioned alarm clock, and if you can put it in a position where you
have to
get
up
out of bed, because
Yes.
these things have horrible rings, beeps, and all
Yeah,
the rest of
yeah.
it. Whereas a mobile phone, you can wake up to heart music.
Well,
twittering.
I actually prefer to wake up to a gentler alarm because I'm not the, like that. I don't like that either. But that's a great idea to just purchase something that, if you prefer something mellow, fine. Something that's going to sound nice, whatever you like, get up and turn it off and not on the phone immediately. Absolutely.
But it is terrifying before a lot of people have even got out of bed. They're absorbing the murders, the crime, the political, the drama, whether that's worldwide.
Well, no wonder you feel anxious.
Absolutely. And we haven't even got out of bed.
No.
And then God knows what else is going to
I
happen.
remember there was this movie years ago. It was actually Jodie Foster's first directorial debut, and it was called Little Man Tate.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I don't know if you remember this. And it was her little boy, and he was a prodigy. He was a genius, and he was very young. He was like 7, 8 years old. And he would look at the newspapers on the newsstand and see something like some headline that was very scary, and he didn't have the emotional capacity to be able to understand that he had no control over this. It's not going to hurt him or anything. He would just be like, and she would have to be like, it's okay, sweetie, it's the same kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, we're knowing so much more of everything that's going on in the world, and most of that kind of stuff, they only report bad, negative. You know what I mean? It's always like this disturbing, bad thing that's happening or something like that. It's hardly anything, this is, you know what I mean? It's and so it's the same kind of result. Like, subconsciously, you just keep on absorbing this more and more, and we think we're adapting to it, but we're not.
No.
We're pretending like we are, but our bodies and our minds are screaming at us, obviously. Everybody's talking about all the different problems they're having, right?
So, Michele, just before we finish, let's have a piece of advice. I mean, obviously, we're going to put the links to your website and your book with the podcast, but a piece of advice. If anybody's thinking, okay, well, I don't have to, sit on cross-legged on the floor and for an hour. What would you say if somebody just thought, okay, I'm going to give it a go, I'm only going to do it for a minute? What would you suggest they do for 1 minute?
I would suggest that you find something you're comfortable with and you enjoy, that you can just focus on, whether it be cooking, whether it be creative, whether it be out in the nature, whatever. If you're uncomfortable just sitting alone, sitting just still, you can walk, whatever. Just choose something that brings you joy and that would interest you to focus on. Not reading. Okay, just something like that. And relax and treat yourself with love and compassion. This is not serious, okay? It is a serious matter as far as your mental health and your physical health, and this is a beautiful tool that you can learn to use. And there's a lot of that will help you with that and help you with a lot of the symptoms you're struggling with. And you're not alone. That everybody's dealing with this challenge. We're just expressing it with their different ways. And the guidance and the support is all out there. All you have to do is go on the internet or YouTube and you will find a lot of types of support to help you with this. You're not alone and you don't have to take it so serious and just treat yourself with love and compassion. There's a lot of things: meditation, breath work, mindfulness, going out in the nature. There's all kinds of different practices you can use, and just pay attention a little bit more to the input, output, all that kind of stuff. Just try to observe yourself a little bit more and you'll be surprised. And don't judge yourself. You'll be surprised at how negative you are. You may think you're a really positive person, but when you start getting in there, you'll notice. But the key is not to judge yourself. Everybody's struggling with this, okay? And you just go, oh, well, that's interesting. I don't want to be that negative, and that's okay. We're gonna learn to turn this around.
Great words of wisdom there, Michele. Michele, thank you so much. It's been so interesting, and I've been sitting here nodding to what you're saying. Yeah, it's a huge topic and it's a fascinating topic. So give it a go. Start small. There's no right or wrong way.
Exactly.
Do something you're comfortable with, and then if you want to, then you can progress with a teacher. Michele, thank you so much for being a guest on the All About You podcast.
Thank you very much.
So if you have enjoyed that conversation, thank you for listening. And don't forget to subscribe for future episodes. It's free. And if you have a story you'd like to tell, contact me on allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com and let's get your story told.